Well, greetings, everybody. I've tried to put together, or I'm in the process now, I guess, of trying to put together a little video for you to show you how I do star trails. I think there are probably lots of ways to do it, but I've got one, and you've got yours, and perhaps you can share yours later on too. Um, the background on this image, I shot this with my Canon 5D Mark III with a 17 to 40 because I wanted foreground and stars together. I'd done one before with a tilt shift, and that actually created some problems. I should be able to show you that later. Um, the numbers on this particular image are 30-second exposure at f4. The ISO was 200. I shot this without an intervalometer. I just used the burst mode slow setting on my camera and a wired cable release. Once I got to the point where I was doing the star trails only, and turned it on or activated the first shot, locked it in place, and then pretty much found something to do for 2 or 3 hours. So the camera rolled on. I did put a lens warmer on it so that I didn't have any fog on the front element. I've gotten that in the past. Especially I got it most recently, last August, I got it down at Body Island when the morning dew set in. It just totally coated my lens. So lens warmer is a good idea. They're not very expensive. Find one online someplace and try it. Buy a lithium backup battery or something to power it, and you'll be good to go. All right, so there are some corrections that I wanted to make to this image. I could do some of it in Lightroom, or I could do all of it in Photoshop. One of the things, since I'm kind of an architectural geek, is I don't like the distortion because I had to tilt the camera up. The pilings are leaning towards the center of the image, so I'm going to go to guided mode and develop under transform in the develop module, and I am going to fix that part of it just so you can see how you can do that here. There's one, on the other side is another. Click and boom, there you are. And if I were going to stick with that, I would come up to the crop tool, unlock the padlock, and I would slide the edges in, and there we'd be. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something different this time. I'm going to correct for not only the lean, but also the swoop of the lowness of the horizon in the middle. So normally what I would do is select the first image, which is what this one is, and I've had to limit it to 200 because Photoshop, even with 64 gigabytes of RAM, with all these raw images, is having a tough time processing all of those. I would highlight all of them. I would go to Photo, Edit in, and then I would have it open as layers in Photoshop. And it could take as much as a half an hour or so, depending on how many you have to upload all those. So I already have those uploaded, so I'm just going to switch over to Photoshop. And here we are. I would begin the process by selecting the top image in this run. I've got two sets up here. I'm going to do both of them. I would scroll to the bottom. These are all the images I set up. These are the 200. Shift click the bottom one. And this is where the RAM and the processor come in. I would come up to this drop down menu, click it, and go to lighten. And it may take a minute to get there, but once it does, it will blend all these images together. So waiting, waiting, waiting. Come on, I know you can do it. And it is doing it. And there we have it. So at that point, Once I was there, I would come up to the layer palette or the layer menu at the top, and I would flatten it. You really don't need those anymore. Then I would go over to the other batch that I sent up. This batch, it's got fewer images in it. I would scroll to the bottom of this one, select them. This may take longer. Go to normal, lighten, and wait for that to process. As we're waiting, you may see, if you're looking closely, some bright spots in the pilings and things in the foreground. Those actually may be hot pixels from my camera. So I don't know if I've got a problem with the sensor or not, but time exposure sometimes will bring out those hot pixels. I should also tell you, one of the reasons I took this set this time was to try to determine if in moving ocean water there would be any star trails visible in the water. And I'm thinking in this particular case, since I had a full moon rising behind me, that is largely what's lighting up the foreground, that there isn't any hint of a star trail anywhere in the water that I've seen. I've looked and looked and looked and haven't found anything. So I'm still waiting for this batch to flatten or blend. So once that happens, I'm going to take both sets and blend them together, crossing fingers. I know you can do it, sweetie. 64 mega RAM, and it still has trouble with this. It makes me wonder if shooting star trails as JPEGs might be a quicker and easier thing to do, especially since it's a star trail part. The only part you're literally looking for is the starlight anyway. So if you shot your foreground images ahead of time with RAW and then went to JPEG images for the stars, it might speed the process up, and I'm wondering if there would be a noticeable change in the way any of this is going. So waiting. I'm going to pause this for a minute. Okay, here we are. Took a few minutes for that to happen. I'm going to flatten this group too and watch for the bouncing ball or the beach ball. I'll get that from time to time. So there we have that flattened. I'm going to do a Command select and copy on that image. I'm going to switch over to this side. I'm going to do a Command V and paste it. I'm going to select both of them. Get rid of the padlock for the background on this one. Go to lighten. Let's try this one more time. There we are. Okay, it's all there. So now I'm going to take that and flatten it again. And we have it. I'm going to make a copy, Command J. And here in Photoshop, I'm going to do two things to correct the distortion. One is the dip in the middle, and the other is to lean on the pilings. So I'm going to zoom it back just a little bit. Option key and the magnifier allows you to zoom it back. I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Skew, and I'm going to pull well, I can't. Let me try this first. That's pretty close. Maybe a little more. And try the other side too. Let's see if that did it. Enter. And they're straighter than they were. So I'm going to plus this up just a little bit so we can see it a little better. If you notice from the horizontal straight edge that there's a little bow in the image, it's also not completely level. So I'm going to level it with the straighten tool. Go from there to there. Enter. So we're level. I want to bring this back down to look at it because I want to use it as a guide. I'm going to go to Edit, Puppet Warp, and you get this neat cage up on your screen. I'm going to anchor it there at the left side, anchor it there on the right side, and then I'm going to come to the middle and I'm going to grab it, hold the mouse down, and slip this up just a little bit to get that dip out of there. And I can see I've still got a little bit of a tilt on the piling out to the left-hand side. If you want to get rid of now these, you can drag them out of the way, or you can hit Command semicolon, and it'll make them disappear, but they won't go away. They'll just come back. So you can see in this image there's some cleanup that has to be done. I had a choice with this image whether to go in and clean them up individually or wait until I had them all blended together. And I believe I've decided that because waiting, depending on which method of eliminating these you pick, you can sit here and you can plug away all day long and get rid of those, or you can use the line tool, or make a selection out of something like this. Go to path, that creates a path, and you take that, turn it into a selection, and then try a content aware, and I believe you'll find it works sometimes. But if you notice right there and right there, it put a little bit of a warp in the start trail. So I decided I didn't want to do that, so I don't. I'm going to start doing the individual images one at a time. It's a pain, but it gives you a much cleaner product when you're done. And let me go back to Lightroom. Oh, I know, you just want to be finicky. Back to Lightroom, and if I go back down here to the end and bring up this one, this is the final. Let me bring it full screen. F key takes an image in Lightroom to full screen. This is it. I've got a little issue on the bottom. I guess I got to fix that. But this is what it looks like, and I took those lines out ahead of time. So it made it much cleaner, much easier in the long run to do. And if I can go to this other set and this image that I did a while back up there, this one wound up being square. I shot this one with my tilt shift 24. I did the horizon and the twilight first, and then shifted the lens up and captured star trails for 3 hours. And I got a complaint from somebody that they didn't see any star trails in the water, and I put them in here at this time. I just took the top, I copied it, flipped it, and layer masked it in at 1%, so that we could see a little bit there. But I have pretty much decided that as long as the water is moving, as the ocean does, and ships go by and they create waves, no matter what's going on in the bay, there's something happening that's disturbing the water. You're really not going to see much of at all of star trails in the water unless it's really like a placid lake. So I've seen a lot of star trails shot over like crater lakes and mountains where there was not a breath of air and the water was fresh, so it wasn't polluted or contaminated with salt, which tends to diffuse the reflection ability too. So that is how I've come to the conclusion. I think that ocean water just isn't conducive to reflections in star trails. So we can talk about that. There's a big discussion going on in a pro group that I belong to about that very thing. So I hope this helped. I'm continuing to work on this process in a way to try to make it all work. And hopefully it did for you. So if you have questions, holler. But this is my attempt at a star trail video to at least show you how I've been doing it. And I can't think of anything that I've left out. But again, if you have questions, pop them up, because this will be on YouTube here in a few minutes. Thanks. Bye.